Responsible. That's a big word. Do you know what that means? Well, this is about George Washington. It says little George Washington. So George Washington was the first president of the United States of America, and this is about his journey to learn to be responsible. It says, way back when wee George Washington was just a little lad, he got a special present from his loving mom and dad. Do you see what those are? They're little trees. A group of 13 cherry trees, some saplings of his own, that he could plant and care for, and have cherries when they'd grown. So little George dug 13 holes and placed the saplings in. Now all I have to do is wait, he stated with a grin. But waiting for a cherry tree to grow up big and strong was not the most fun thing to do. Why must it take so long? At first, he checked them every day and watered them a lot. But after just a week of working, little George forgot. Instead, he'd play down by the creek with boats that he could ride and make believe he led an army to the other side. And he did that one day, the Delaware. Or sometimes he'd pretend to be a woodsman with an axe. He'd forge across the valleys like a mighty lumberjack. He'd take a chop at tiny trees and think it was such fun until he made a big mistake and chopped down the wrong one. Uh-oh, little George. He'd cut down his own cherry tree, poor little number 5, and noticed that the other 12 were barely still alive. He ran back to the creek and got some water for the others, then took his axe and hurried home to tell his dad and mother. I cannot tell a lie, said George. I chopped my cherry tree. His father simply smiled at him and said, son, follow me. Then kindly, George's father took the stem that he'd chopped down and splinted it back to the trunk, then tied it tightly round. They stood before the cherry trees, and George's father said, it looks like you have work to do before you go to bed. And from that day, George learned to tend those tiny trees until the strongest 13 trees you'd seen had blossomed on that hill. He learned to be responsible. That means to take good care of plants and pets, and most of all, people everywhere. So when you're chomping cherries, think of George, who grew to be the father of our country with responsibility. And then here's some little facts about George Washington. Did you know that George Washington was our first president and is known as the father of our country? That when he was alive, it was common for men to wear powdered wigs. Powdered means there was powder on it. And a wig is fake hair. I'm going to try to show you a picture. I saw his dad was wearing a powdered wig right here. So that wasn't his real hair. That was a wig. And did you know that before he was president, he was a general in command of the colonial armies? And that the 13 trees in this story stood for our country's original 13 states. So that is this book about America's virtues. I think I have another one I'll read sometime too. This was Words by David Mead and Pictures by Chris Sharp. And I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you will be responsible for yourself and for those you need to care for.